Let me tell you about ProHealthConnect.com. It's transforming healthcare payments, providing retailers a seamless process for over-the-counter and healthy benefit programs. By connecting retailers, health plans, and payment processors, ProHealth Connect creates one powerful, unified network. They empower independent grocers and pharmacies to accept health benefit cards without changing how they do business. With over 10,000 locations nationwide, helping more than 1.3 million people access the care and nutrition they need. Go to ProHealthConnect.com.
In the squadron, they called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
What we're seeing now are a lot of these secondary explosions in these vehicles on either side of the road. They were destroyed by some of the tanks in front of us. Either their fuel tanks or munitions inside continue to explode as we pass by. But once again, this fight has been taken into the heart of Baghdad. We're not on the outskirts. We're not in greater Baghdad. This is it. This is Baghdad. This is what these guys came here for. We'll be here for a while.
Well, that was a familiar voice, wasn't it? Gregory R. Kelly rolling into Baghdad in April of 2003. I was an embedded correspondent, and you know what? I think we need some of those during these operations. We don't have any. Now you could say, well, a couple of things. The fake news, right? Can you trust them? I mean, would you really ever trust them? Probably not. It probably can't be done. But it has been done before. And with mixed results, let's face it. Everybody remembers that hothead correspondent who gave away the position of the troops. Remember that in Afghanistan? And then there was this, in Vietnam. This is Morley Safer, who went on to 60 Minutes, kind of wetting his pants about, you know, a small fire. Cut 4, please. Cut 4.
This is what the war in Vietnam is all about. The old and the very young. The Marines have burned this old couple's cottage because fire was coming from here. And now when you walk into the village, you see no young people at all. Fire was coming from light automatic weapons fire was coming from all of these villages.
Well, what are you going to do? What's going to happen? He says this is the Vietnam War. Everything, this represents the Vietnam War in its entirety. A little fire? A little fire? There's a fire in the Bronx. Is that life in America right now? A lot of these reporters, they think whatever they see, wherever they are, it must be the biggest thing in the world. Wrong. Hey, I do have this question, though, and it remains, it's a viable question. The fake news and conservative media. What the hell? Who is running the show over there in Iran? Okay? Who is in charge? Is it the Khamenei boy, Khamenei Jr.? Is it some person like the Shah's cousin or something like that? Who is running the show, Carlos? Number one.
Who's in charge right now in Iran? Has a new supreme leader been chosen yet?
Who is in charge? What do we know about who is running Iran right now? Who's running the place? And who will the Gulf states, if at all, be dealing with?
Who is running? Well, we don't know. We don't know for sure. However, there's a report. President Trump, it looks like he just talked to the New York Post, and he's talking about we're not going to be in Iran for long. We will not be there for long. Trump says war against Iran will not last much longer. Strait of Hormuz will reopen automatically after U.S. exit. He's right about that, you know. And also, like, why would they keep it closed? Those aren't American ships. Now, the next time we take a U.S. military vessel through the Straits of Hormuz, well, that could be very interesting. And we got to be very, very careful. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. All right. Hey, one other thing. What is up again with all of these female teachers hooking up with their students? It is a national epidemic. I mean, it is everywhere. Women. I mean, let's face it, men, you know, what do you expect from men? Men are crazy. Women aren't supposed to do this. Special ed teacher admits to having sex with 2 students, once with both in the same room. Are you crazy? A high school special education teacher has admitted to having sex with 2 16-year-old students once when they were in the same room. World Studies teacher Nadia Horn, 22 years old, admitted to having sex with both pupils including 3 times with one who told cops they did everything sexual you can do with a person. Thanks, pal. The first victim was in the room when she first had sex with the other boy, too, with the teacher groping him before he left them at it. What the hell? I made a mistake, the teacher allegedly told cops in the interview, wildly claiming that the teacher-pupil sex felt mutual. Horn's confession came after she was seen weeping in her mugshot, as cops said they were investigating her for several victims. Horn bought her first victim an iPhone 14 in January when he said he was unable to Snapchat her, then sent him very revealing snaps and asked him to meet outside school. It kind of shows you, sex, if you don't control it, it will control you. And you can also see that this girl, I can see her weeping here, right? And she wishes she could take it back. Whatever temporary satisfaction that situation brought her, not worth it. The teacher at North High School in Eau Claire admitted during her police interview that the snaps potentially included nudes. Now she faces 40 years in prison. And invariably these teachers seem to be married. Allegedly told the student she couldn't wait to see him and claimed seeing him made her body feel a certain way. She also encouraged him to skip class so he could come to her apartment, with the last request just hours before she was busted. Man, we got a big problem on our hands here. There was a time when nobody had access to pornography except certain people in the 1960s. Then it became a little bit more widespread in the 1970s. Cable television hits in the 1980s. 1990s, people are taking home videos. And then about 15 years ago, everybody has every piece of pornography ever created in their pocket. And from what I'm told, some of the most the most favorite type of pornography, the favorite genres involved mixed ages. Older woman, younger man, older woman, younger girl, all this crap. And I'm not saying I understand. All right, I understand. I'm not, you know what I mean? All right, don't make me say it, okay? But this is going to drive people and society right off a cliff. Roger Stone told me yesterday, we're seeing the decline of Western civilization. All right? And I know Roger's Roger, hey, colorful past, Roger, of course. But you see it where the way people dress, sloppy. I saw a guy wearing a suit. I thought it was a United States senator. No, it's just a guy wearing a suit. Nobody wears suits anymore. Everybody is basically in workout clothes all the time, even though very few people seem to work out. All right, we got to go back to this bizarre briefing so far. I want information from the war zone, and what I'm getting is a pep talk, all right, from both General Kane and Secretary Hegseth. Just don't jerk us around here. We can handle the facts. We can handle it. You're treating us like children. And, 2 things with General Kane. He comes out, talks about some guy who died 2 years ago of being 102 years old. And now he's talking about the factory workers who are in the bomb plant, the ones who make the bombs here in America. I want to know about the Operation Tempo. I want to know things. All right? Stop jerking us around. And now the questions are going to be coming. And I'm going to make a prediction. Hegseth will appear indignant. How dare you ask me such a question? These are actually legitimate questions. All right. Pick it up if you don't mind.
Wrong with that, but this is exactly the way this group of Americans likes it. I know this. I've seen it myself, and I remain deeply honored by that gift. It's often loud and dangerous work, demanding, requires absolute focus for hours at a time with deep commitment to get it right every single time. It's hands-on work where one uncaught mistake or deviation can put an American's life at risk. A single misplaced wire, a microscopic flaw in a weld, incorrectly calibrated sensor could mean the difference between mission success or mission failure. The difference is measured in the lives of our sons and daughters who we put out around the field and on the field of battle. We rely on and trust in these great Americans, and it's not just their manufacturing skill, it's their innovative minds and their entrepreneurial spirit. from those who build exquisite capabilities down to the mom and pop machine shops all over this great country. They live at the beginning of and the core of America's combat capability, constantly adapting, constantly improving, constantly learning. And there are examples of this throughout history and current days, to include building things like the F-117 stealth fighter, the B-2 stealth bomber, making our combat capability undetectable over the enemy, to today's B-21 and F-40.
This is disappointing as well. So we have here, most people wouldn't notice it, but I can't help but notice it. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is bragging about the Air Force. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is in the Air Force, right? That's like, oh, we got a big break. The chairman is one of us. This whole thing about joint base Andrews, joint base this, joint base that. No, they're all out for the individual services. That ain't going away. I thought it would, but it hasn't. All right, pick it up. This guy's angering me now.
It's work like in the shipyards of the East Coast and Northeast side of the United States that go out and build America's nuclear submarines that allow us to patrol around the world at the time and place of our choosing. These innovators, these workers, these incredible Americans don't get the same glory as a fighter pilot returning to a carrier deck at night or an artilleryman sending rounds downrange, and yet they show up every single day. And without them, we could not do the work that we are tasked to do. 24/7, they build the tools that we need to do our business. The skill, the commitment, the patriotism, the dedication poured into every piece of combat capability and hardware is seen and felt out at the edge of the force, as the Secretary talked about those young bomb builders out in the desert that he had the chance to see. You can see it, you can feel it, and it's real, and we're deeply grateful. So to the American workforce out there, both inside our defense industrial base and in our national industrial base, thank you on behalf of the Joint Force.
Can we get
carry
to the point?
Weapons that you build. We rely on the systems that you create, and the distance from that factory floor and that assembly line to the front line is incredibly short. Thank you. Keep it up. And to our adversaries out there, I remind you to beware of the American workforce. We continue to press forward in our military.
I'm sorry, but let's leave the American civilian workforce out of it. Why are they bringing up the adversary? Well, why? You know what I mean? They want a terrorist attack at some factory. Stop talking. People talking without speaking. That's what I'm getting from this. People hearing without listening. You ever hear that one? Simon and Garfunkel, they were right 60 years ago, for crying out loud. Pick it up.
Objectives. The Secretary and I remain deeply humbled by the spirit, tenacity, commitment, and grit of our 2.8 million member strong joint force. I want to, as always, thank the force and their families, and as always, remember our fallen. We carry with them and their names every day. Sir, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two things. He didn't note it, but in memory of Colonel Bud Anderson, the chairman himself flew his F-16 to honor him recently. And thank you for highlighting the defense industrial base, the arsenal of freedom. It's worth noting no one has rebuilt that defense industrial base faster and with more purpose than President Trump in his first term. And now we're rebuilding the arsenal of freedom. Our defense industrial base is more vibrant today than it's been since World War II and growing rapidly. Contrast that with Iran, whose defense industrial base is nearly completely destroyed. Their ability to reconstitute the weapons of war they're using now that they're hiding in underground facilities and attriting over time, their ability to rebuild that is negligible. And I think that contrast is an enduring legacy of this as well. Right here.
Thank you for your time. We've had some signaling that the U.S. will retake control of the Strait of Hormuz. At that point, what military posture will be imposed to guarantee safe passage for our allies, deter our enemies, and demonstrate U.S. dominance in the region? And also, can you speak to how much America's adversaries, Russia, China, North Korea, how much they're supporting Iran's war machine at this point with arms and intelligence, and what we are militarily doing to punish the enemy coalition?
Appreciate both questions. On the Strait of Hormuz, there are many more vessels flowing through today than there were, as the president has arranged. The president's been clear to Iran, open it for business, or we have options, and we certainly do. And when you look at what the chairman laid out with the Navy industrial base, with coastal cruise missiles, with UAVs, with counter-mine capabilities, we've been focused from the beginning on attriting and defeating those capabilities and limiting their options. There's lots we're doing as well, some of which is known, some of which is not known, to set the conditions. And I think the president was clear this morning in his truth that there are countries around the world who ought to be prepared to step up on this critical waterway as well.
All right, thanks. We'll be right back. Nasty looking story out there about Hegseth and his finances. I'm going to let that slide for now because somebody I somewhat trust, Parnell, says it's his spokesman, a guy named Parnell, says it's a bogus fake news story. So I'll go with that for now. Be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Greg Kelly on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The name's Francis Sawyer. But everybody calls me Psycho. Any of you guys call me Francis, and I'll kill you.
Lighten up, Francis.
I love it. Sergeant Hulka with the great big toe. Big toe. That's from Stripes. And lighten up, Francis. That's what a lot of certain guys I know, a certain subset, and it is a subset of the military, where they let thank you for your service go to their head. And somehow they think they're running the show right now. A prime example of that, usually Democrats, Mark Kelly, the Space Cadet Senator from Arizona. Listen to this guy, the bragging. Like, I guess they don't call it Fort Bragg for nothing. You know what I mean? Cut 8.
I've served this country my entire adult life as a midshipman at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, as a pilot, flying off of an aircraft carrier, in combat, as a test pilot, and an astronaut.
Well, I'm retired Navy. I was in the Navy for 25 years. Okay. So I have a whole career.
I flew 39 combat missions in Operation Desert Storm over Iraq and Kuwait. By the time I met Gabby, I'd already flown my first 2 flights on the space shuttle.
I flew on the space shuttle 4 times.
So what? What on earth have you done for me lately? I don't care anymore. I do not care. And quite frankly, not only if it's on the left, but if it's on the right too. Because our admiration for the military has been weaponized against all of us. And these crazy over-the-top podcasts, right? I mean, they are over the top. For instance, the Sean Ryan Show. Cut 10, please. Hardcore. It's like the opening of the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And, you know something? We don't work for them. Remember that.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, hello. You know, we haven't done this in a while because I'm very concerned about the friends who were unfairly persecuted for alleged offenses over January 6th. And, you know, President Trump pardoned like 99% of them, and it was wonderful. I mean, he actually didn't have to do that. And he would have had cover on the left, of course, and even on the right. So President Trump did the right thing, and there was very little in it for him. He just did the right thing, and I think it's beautiful. However, not everybody did get pardoned. Some of the cases are a little bit more complicated. Zach Real joins us. Did we get that? Zach, we've talked before. Zach, how are you, first of all? Good to see you or hear you.
Good, yeah. Thanks for having me on again. The fight still goes on for us, some of us, you know, and for those who don't recall who I am, like I said, I'm a military vet, Marine Corps vet. I'm disabled. And I haven't been able to get any of my benefits because of that. But also, like you mentioned, it's, a very complex situation we're going through. Like we have to actually still appeal our sentences, basically.
All right, now do me a favor. Let's go through it. What did you do on January 6th? How did you get there, and what did you do once you were there in Washington, D.C.?
So, I was part of the Proud Boys. We went down there.
And by the way, the Proud Boys. So you're in the Proud Boys. Let's just make sure everybody understands, despite what you heard out of Joe Biden's lying mouth, the Proud Boys are not white supremacists. There are people from all races, orientations. There are some gay Proud Boys. Yes, there are. Straight Proud Boys. Tell us a little bit about what the Proud Boys are, in your opinion.
Well, it's a men's fraternal organization. Fraternities in America have been around since the beginning of our country, the founding of our country. And this one's no different. I mean, like half the group just wants to hang out and get drunk and hang out with each other. And there's a few of us that like to get involved in patriotic events, showing up to support President Trump, things of that nature. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing crazy. And, for me, January 6th wasn't any different. I went to about 30 rallies in the past year by the time January 6th rolled around. And, there was nothing crazy at these rallies. I mean, sometimes you get in a little cross paths with Antifa once in a blue moon, but those are few and far between. Those didn't happen as much as the media made it out to be. But, January 6th, like I said, I went down there. I almost didn't even make the event because, we were drinking the night before and just partying. And then,
hey man, not for nothing, but, maybe a little bit too much drinking. You gotta go easy on the booze. What do you do? What were you doing for a living on January 5th? What did you do? And how old are you?
I'm actually 40 now. I was 36 at the time. I was suffering with the COVID lockdowns like pretty much everybody else. Cause I lived in Philadelphia, so we were still dealing with lockdowns and whatnot. But I used to work for Merrill Lynch. So I did finance work and everything. And I was actually in the process and opened up my own company, but I couldn't do it at the time because the state was all shut down.
I got it. So you show up at your Washington, D.C., then what happens?
We marched around the city a little bit, and then eventually we decided to go start walking to the Capitol because President Trump, he's wrapping his speech up and told everybody that, let's go protest peacefully and patriotically, get your voices heard. So we're like, all right, well, I guess we're going to go protest at the Capitol now. And that was pretty much it. I mean, we're all standing around just waiting to see, who's going to show up and give a speech there. And, next thing you know, we're all getting shot with pepper balls and sprayed with mace and everything. And, it was wild. Nothing I expected. Nothing we provoked. Like I said, we didn't know any of that was even going to happen.
No, I mean, I saw the videos. These cops are firing into a peaceful crowd. These pepper spray bullets and smoke grenades, and it's like they're picking a fight with you. Did you go inside the Capitol?
I actually did. About 45 minutes after they were already being let in, me and my friends, and we were on video camera. I was on video camera saying this too. I was like, hey, they're letting people in. They already evacuated the Capitol. I mean, some of us will never be in D.C. again. You guys want to go check out what's going on inside? And they're like, yes, whatever, sure, why not? And that's when we decided to go in. Like literally completely harmless. Thought we were allowed to go in. Walked in. I walked around, took some pictures for about 15 minutes.
How did you get in? Did you go through a door, a broken window? How'd you get in?
It was an open door. There was hundreds of people just walking in. And I even talked to cops while I was in there. I walked up to a couple cops. I'm like, hey, we allowed to go down that hallway? And they're like, no, absolutely not. Like, just stay around here and you'll be fine. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. But,
all right. So you walk around, then you leave. When were you arrested?
I wasn't arrested for about 2 more months. March 17th, 2021. They came and raided my house, and it looked like they just got done arresting Pablo Escobar. Police cars everywhere, helicopter. I was like, geez. I even said to the FBI agent, I was like, this is a little over the top. Like, I didn't really do anything that day at all. Like, but
what did he say? Because it was over the top, and they did it on purpose. They did it to besmirch, to stigmatize MAGA, not only to get you and also get Trump, but to end a political movement, the MAGA movement, to make us all look like terrorists and or terrorist sympathizers. That's what they did. And that's why they did what they did. It wasn't about legal. It was about theatrics and politics, and it's horrific what they did. And you know what? You can get somebody killed that way.
Absolutely, I agree 110%. And the moment I was denied bail was like when I first started realizing that this has nothing to do with serving justice that day. This is all about stomping out the MAGA movement and trying to scare Trump off and trying to run for office again.
Had you ever committed a crime before?
No, I haven't. I've never served time in prison or anything.
And so they denied you bail. They denied you bail. What were you charged with? Do you remember?
Yeah, at the time I was charged with that 1512 obstruction of an official proceeding charge. It got thrown out later in the Supreme Court. And like trespassing and standing in restricted grounds, a few misdemeanors. But when we refused to cooperate with the government, which they wanted us to basically just say it was all Trump and this and that, I'm like, no, like it wasn't all Trump. It wasn't anybody. Like, so yeah, we refused, and then that's when they start tacking on more charges. They came out with a second indictment.
How long were you in jail waiting for your trial?
I want to say it was a little over 2 years, or close to 2 years, maybe a little bit over.
2 years. You were in jail before a trial.
Yes.
That's crazy. That is crazy and un-American. And they were all right. So did you go to trial or did you enter a plea? What happened?
Oh no, I didn't do anything I was charged with. So I took it to trial with my co-defendants. It was a 6 month trial. It was the longest one out of all of them. And it was an absolute show, literal just show. You know, we'd have all of our motions denied. You know, anytime we caught the government doing something shady, you know, they got protected, but you know, and they were able to cover their crimes up essentially, really, like I like to call them. And yeah, they watered down all of the charges so much so that like anybody could have been convicted of the seditious conspiracy charge we were ultimately convicted of. So, I mean, the bar was so low, it was almost impossible for this very, very biased jury to rule any other way.
All right. Sorry, this
Right.
happened in D.C. or Philadelphia, by the way, the trial for you?
D.C., yeah, D.C.
All right. So you get convicted by a trial jury, right?
Yes.
Oh, my God. And that's in 23. So you already spent 2 years in jail. What was the sentence? What did they sentence you to?
I was sentenced to 15 years. 15 years. The judge even admitted on the witness stand that like I didn't cause any violence. I didn't like break anything. You know, I wasn't out there fighting cops. But you know, he tacked on this terrorism enhancement, which basically gave him more leeway to tack on all this extra time. He's like, I understand you didn't do any of this, but I'm going to give you the terrorism enhancement anyway. And it was just like, oh, wow, cool. Thanks.
So terrible. Now, okay, you're in there. Where'd you go to prison, by the way? Where was the jail?
Well, I spent the first year and a half in FDC Philly. I bounced around a little bit. I did end up at a DC gulag, but ultimately I ended up in Petersburg in Virginia. That was a medium security prison. So first time offender, I had like the lowest points possible for like where I should have been held in custody at. And they bumped me up 2 security levels to be in a medium security prison with all the, you know, rapists, murderers, and the worst kind of people on the planet. You know, the people who were very violent.
What was it like in there for you?
I mean, it was horrible because it was prison for one, and that the BOP is just disgrace in general. The inmates didn't treat me too bad, but it was the COs that treated me bad. The COs would always taunt me, or they would, you know, shake my cell down, destroy all my stuff, take my stuff, give it away to other people.
What does CO stand for?
Oh, corrections officer.
And they were hassling you left and right. So,
oh yeah.
But you're released. You're finally released, or are you released with everybody else on January 20th when President Trump issued the pardon and the sentence commutations? Now, I know you didn't get a pardon, more on that, but your sentence was, I believe, commuted the first day President Trump was in office, and you walked out of jail that night or the next morning?
Yes, I got out the next morning. It's basically they didn't have enough staff on hand apparently to get me out right away, so they had to call people in, and then they'll get processed out like 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. So, but basically got out close enough that everybody else that I wasn't complaining too much. But I was.
And what was that like? How did that feel? What did that feel like when you walk out of jail and you got the word that you're getting out of there? What was that moment like?
It was amazing. I'm not going to lie. It was definitely amazing. I wasn't even thinking about the commutation versus pardon at the time. I just see my family. It's the first time I got to hug my daughter in 4 years, so it was awesome. It was really awesome. And first thing I did is I got some real food other than prison food.
Well, how old is your daughter? How old is she?
Well, I have two daughters. I have an older one, she's 21, and then a younger daughter who is turning 5 in a couple months.
Wow, so you missed a lot there.
Oh yeah, I missed the birth of my youngest daughter. My wife was 6 months pregnant when I got arrested. It was horrible. They actually scheduled one of bail hearings on my wife's due date.
All right, so President Trump, I'm sorry about that too, but President Trump commuted your sentence, but there were, and he said this out loud, there were a handful of people that they had to look a little bit closer at before they pardoned them, and you're in that group. Why are you in that group? You have not been pardoned, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, why not?
The only people who were not pardoned were the people charged with the seditious conspiracy. And there's only 14 of us who were charged with that. And we're just, for whatever reason, we're just on the hook. And all of us, we probably did almost nothing about anybody. I mean, just walked around. Most of us just walked around and left, and we got stuck with this seditious conspiracy. I honestly think it just has to do with groups. We were both in groups. The other guys who were, given the sedition, they were part of the Oath Keepers. And I think the government was trying to, get off their best chance of getting Trump off the ballots. That was a big thing during election season, with Colorado and everything. And they're trying to tie the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys to President Trump. So they kept tormenting us as much as they could to try and get us to break. So that way we'd go, turn against Trump. But none of us did. So we're probably some of the most loyal people. I'm not saying it's not a measuring contest of any sort, but we were put through the ringer a lot, and we stood our ground and supported President Trump. And it's sad that we're still fighting to try and get our names cleared.
I hear you, and this is a big burden having a felony conviction you got to deal with. Let me just ask you a couple more quick things. Yep. The president said he was going to review this. Do you have any indication from the Department of Justice that this, conviction is under review, that they're looking at it? Are you communicating with them? Is there a back and forth?
There's no back and forth whatsoever. The only indication we got for anything was we all put in pardon applications, and our pardon has been said to have just been pending. That's it. The only thing we're doing is going through the appeals process and trying to fight it through the appeals court, which is been a whole other hassle of delays and stonewalling and everything. So,
all right. Well, look, let's stay on this. Okay. I think you're innocent. I'd like to know a little bit more about your case and the other guys who are in your situation. By the way, Enrique Tarrio, did they hit him with a seditious conspiracy?
Yes, actually. He was actually one of the few that were pardoned. There was another guy who later got pardoned a few months later. So really, that's where I got the number 12 of us who have not been pardoned.
Have you talked to that guy, the guy who got pardoned a few months later? I mean, maybe you can figure out, how that happened for him, and the same thing could happen for you.
I've tried. Nobody's been able to get a hold of him. He's an older, retired guy. He lives on a farm somewhere. Yeah.
Hey, you know what I think? Road trip. You're gonna go knock on that guy's door. Although, but definitely call him ahead of time because some of these guys. You know what I'm talking about. Listen, Zach, I want to help. How do you spell your last name?
It is R-E-H-L.
R-E-H-L. Zach Rell. What are you doing with your time these days? Because let's face it, you're a convicted felon, and that's tough. So what are you doing? How do you make ends meet?
Well, I'm doing little side jobs here and there whenever I get one. I'm also fighting my case myself. I'm representing myself pro se.
I know. That's a tough one. We got to get you a lawyer. All right, man, oh man. Zach, what's your social media? Are you on the social media? Because that's a very important way to get the word out.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm on X. I'm on Facebook. That's Zach Rehl, Z-A-C-H-R-E-H-L. I have a Give Zen Go too under Defend Zach, since ongoing ongoing issues and trying to raise funds just to survive.
All right. Well, listen, good luck. We're going to do some videos, later in the week or next week. And I want to write about you too. I find this fascinating. I don't think you should be in this situation. And, let's see what we can do. All right. I wish you all the best, but let's stay in touch.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks for having me on.
Zach, everybody. Zach, can you imagine that? Just going down there and being hit and sentenced to 15 years in jail. That was just an effort to cancel the greatest political movement, the Make America Great Again movement, and they're still trying to kill it. It won't work, but boy, are they busy. We'll be right back. Thank you, Zach.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
There's a guy who plays basketball, B-ball, as it's also known as, for what team again? He plays for the Chicago Bulls. His name is Bulls, rather. I'm like Warner Wolf here when it comes to sports, right? I don't really give a damn, to be honest. Sometimes I like the personal stories, the backstories about how people become athletes, and sometimes the money fascinates me, but not too much, to be honest. Anyway, this is interesting. A guy named Jaden Ivey. He plays for the Bulls, but he plays no longer because he said some stuff about gay pride. And let's hear what he said. Now, granted, you know what? He said this rather casually. I mean, if I'm going to make an announcement to the world, I'm going to make an announcement to the world. He's like going through the drive-thru in his car, and his phone is on his lap, and he's just talking, basically, is what I see. And this is what he said, and it got him in trouble. Go ahead.
That the world can proclaim LGBTQ. Right? They proclaim Pride Month and the NBA. They proclaim it. They show it to the world. They say, come join us for Pride Month, to celebrate unrighteousness. They proclaim it. They proclaim it on the billboards. They proclaim it in the streets. Unrighteousness. So how is it that one can't speak righteousness? How is it one that how are they to say that this man is crazy?
I'm not the Jay I used to be, but the OJ is dead. I'm alive in Christ. No matter what the basketball setting is, I'm born again. The Holy Spirit. I've been saved by Jesus Christ. No matter what, how many DMPs I don't get to play, or no matter how many points I score.
Okay, I like it. I like what he's saying. At the same time, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like, so many people take out their phone and say stuff, right? It's divorced from what they really do and say in their real life, in their daily life. So, I mean, he goes and he makes this message, a message I totally agree with. But perhaps far more effective would be to share the gospel with the people he knows and loves, right? Instead of going like straight to this divisive LGBT queer stuff. And I don't like Pride Month. I just wonder, okay, gotcha. You're going right into the middle of the culture war. What about being a one-man ambassador for Jesus, God, right? With your teammates everywhere you go, right? Instead, you kind of like basically tweak them so you get fired. I don't know. I'm a little bit mixed up.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?